Coming out of college, Trevor Lawrence was the most highly anticipated quarterback of a generation.
There is one mega talent, generational talent in this draft. Trevor Lawrence.
He did nothing but win and win convincingly all the way through high school and college. And the team landing the #1 pick was getting a Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck caliber player, or so they thought. Now, 3 years into his NFL career, Trevor Lawrence appears to quite possibly be a bust. And giving him a new contract in Jacksonville is a terrible idea as things currently stand. So what went wrong? How did the Jacksonville Jaguars end up here? And is there a shot at redemption for the golden boy of the modern era? To understand just how big of a fall off Trevor Lawrence has had since reaching the NFL, we need to look back at all the success he had beforehand. In 3 seasons at Clemson, he threw for 90 touchdowns, just 17 interceptions, and over 10,000 passing yards. He played in 2 national title games and helped Clemson to the college football playoff in all 3 seasons he played, before announcing that he would be heading to the NFL in the 2021 NFL Draft. The Jacksonville Jaguars had just gone 1-15 in the 2020 season. GM David Caldwell was fired in November, and head coach Doug Marrone followed suit at the end of the season in January. The team was heading for a full reset, and everybody knew that Trevor Lawrence was going to Jacksonville. There was literally not a stain of doubt that the Jaguars were going to take Trevor Lawrence and that they weren't going to trade out of that pick either to let any other team get him. One of college football's finest and most controversial head coaches, Urban Meyer, was hired with the understanding that he'd be able to work with Trevor Lawrence before the team had even drafted him.
He would not have left that job if it wasn't for the perfect storm of circumstances. A bunch of dough, solid ownership, a quarterback situation that is a dream. You are now attached at the hip with one of the most generationally talented kids to come out of college.
And the team were excited for the future of the program. Trevor was drafted with the first overall pick in April of 2021 and has now played 3 seasons in the NFL. In his first 2 seasons, he probably did have excuses on why he was so bad. Now in year 3, there is absolutely nowhere else for him to hide, and the Jaguars and all the fans might just have to accept that maybe he is just a bad quarterback. And honestly, it just looks like he isn't at that level of the many great quarterbacks that came before him, like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, even Patrick Mahomes. Trevor's rookie season didn't exactly go to plan, but Urban Meyer rightly took most of the blame for it. He failed to connect with the team and brought a media circus upon the franchise, clouding Trevor Lawrence's play on the field with endless stories about the team off of it. Lawrence looked honestly terrible as a rookie, but again, they gave him the pass because of the terrible offensive line that he was playing behind. And also, when Urban Meyer is your coach and you have terrible weapons to throw to, that really doesn't help either. With DJ Shark going down early in the season, T-Law was throwing to the likes of a veteran Marvin Jones Jr., a struggling young wide receiver on the other side, and a perennial bust in Laquan Treadwell. As a result, he was only managed to throw 12 touchdown passes with 17 interceptions on the season. Some were starting to think perhaps Trevor Lawrence was a bust.
Yeah, the Jags are in trouble. There's no doubt about that. Big trouble. And, you get in the playoffs, so what? I don't expect them to be able to do anything miraculous with the way that offensive line plays and how bad the defense has been.
But his poor play was largely disguised by all the other failures around the Jaguars. And before labeling him a bust, the team did feel like they had to give him a bit of a chance to try and make an impression on them. And that's exactly what they did with this past offseason. Urban Meyer was fired before the year was even out. And prior to the 2022 campaign kicking off, Jacksonville did everything they could to help Trevor find the groove as a pro.
Why did Urban Meyer fail in the National Football League?
2 reasons. Number 1, Urban Meyer's a bad dude. And then number 2, in the NFL, Urban Meyer's a bad coach. That's why he got fired. You know, the saying that what you do in the darkness will always come out in the light is why Urban Meyer got fired.
They hired Super Bowl winning head coach Doug Peterson, who also happened to be a superb quarterback coach and offensive coordinator in previous roles under Andy Reid. They were then one of the most active teams in the NFL in the 2022 free agency period. GM Trent Baalke wanted hardworking receivers who would put in the hours with their quarterback to help him succeed. He was looking for talent, but he was also looking for the right characteristics in those wide receivers and found them in wide receivers Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, and even in tight end Evan Ingram. The 2022 season was much better for the Jags. Peterson had turned the team's culture around, and Trevor Lawrence looked a completely different player.
I know you've been through a lot. You've been through a lot, even this past season, but that's about to change. And I can promise you that I'm going to come to work every single day with the diligent task to make this a winning organization.
They went from 3-14 in 2021 to 9-8 in 2022, reaching the playoffs for the first time since the 2017 season. That second season in the league really felt like a turnaround. The Jags seemed to have found the kid they'd recruited, and that kid was so used to winning, and he was having fun running the offense with an improved O-line and for better talent to throw the ball. And I mean, hell, even some of the plays that Trevor was making that season were looking elite. Down 7 against the Ravens, he threw a beautiful fade to Marvin Jones with 16 seconds on the clock, then converted a 2-point attempt to Zay Jones for the win. He led multiple comebacks too, but none greater than the performance in the second half of the playoff game against Justin Herbert in the LA Chargers. And depending on how you feel about Trevor Lawrence, you'll either recall the first half of that game or the second half, not the full game probably. Those who believe that he was a bust will probably remember the first half because he threw 4 interceptions in that half and all but killed their chances of even coming close to winning that playoff game. Those who believe that he was who he was coming out of college would remember the second half, in which he led the amazing comeback, but then also eliminated the Chargers in the divisional round. It's one of the biggest games of 2 halves that NFL fans have seen in decades, especially in the postseason, but it gave Jacksonville fans hope. They went into Arrowhead Stadium the following week and nearly emerged with a win. And even though they fell short, the fan base and the organization was ready to mount a serious challenge in 2023. So now in those 2 NFL seasons, Trevor has had a pretty bad start in his rookie year and a pretty crazy playoff win in his second year. Trevor literally went from 12 touchdowns and 17 interceptions to 30 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. And by all means, he looked incredibly comfortable in Doug Peterson's offense. Leading into this season too, the Jags were honestly considered an outside contender. Hell, I even bought into Trevor Lawrence in my card collection and I went in on him. Pause. They had a great front 7 on defense and a quarterback who nearly beat Patrick Mahomes on the road in Arrowhead. Like, how could you not believe in this team? Calvin Ridley was added to the wide receiver room.
The Falcons are trading Calvin Ridley to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Complex formula of picks. Suspended Ridley headed to Jacksonville.
And the team once again appeared to be making strides in the right direction. But now looking at this season, it just doesn't look like it's gone to plan, and fans are honestly starting to question if Trevor Lawrence really is a bust. And I think not many people are going to like to hear this, but one consistent comparison that I keep seeing in Trevor Lawrence is Sam Bradford. I mean, look at their careers. They almost parallel. Sam Bradford was a dominant college quarterback, winning AP Offensive Player of the Year at Oklahoma and multiple trophies in 2008 for his performances. He had all the tools in the league, but never really reached that potential that everybody wanted him to reach. In the NFL, Bradford was good, sometimes of course, but just not great. And eventually those wheels did fall off, which really begs the question, in college, did Trevor Lawrence just have insane wide receivers with insane catch radiuses to bail him out of trouble? He was playing with the likes of Travis Etienne, T. Higgins, and Justin Ross, the later of the two, which were both big, tall wide receivers with great hands who could catch a ball in a big radius. Sam Bradford's NFL career was heavily impacted by injuries, twice tearing his ACL while playing behind a bad offensive line. The same fate with the line is true for Trevor Lawrence, who has taken some nasty looking hits in his 3 years with the Jags, but so far, fortunately avoiding a long-term injury. There's no doubt that Trevor Lawrence is durable, but is he good? The offensive line has struggled in 2023, but how many excuses can you give your franchise quarterback before you have to make a call on whether he's the guy or not? It's always the coach is bad, or the offensive line is bad, or the wide receivers missed a ball. But I don't hear anybody talking about maybe your quarterback is just average, with great eye appeal in the eye test, but just mediocre on the field when you put him out there. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Trevor Lawrence should look a lot better than he does right now, playing under the same head coach, but he's hurting this team. And don't get me wrong, there is absolutely no denying Trevor Lawrence's skill set. He's got an elite arm, great mobility, can sense pressure in the pocket and escape it, but his mistakes are just too often and too damaging to this team. Fumbles have been a serious issue, putting the ball on the ground 25 times in the past 2 seasons combined. And what many people aren't talking about is how bad he's missing his receivers. Look at the game against the Bucs in week 16. He completely sailed the ball over his wide receiver and threw it right to Antonio Winfield. That's something that shouldn't be happening in such an elite quarterback. In 2023, he hasn't thrown anywhere near enough touchdowns to interceptions in a season that was supposed to bring forward momentum to the franchise, finding his guys in the end zone just 19 times through the first 15 games, while also turning the ball over 19 times with either fumbles or interceptions. And now 3 years deep into his rookie deal, the franchise is going to seriously have to start considering if they want to pay him. Trevor's 5th-year option will factor in the 2025 season, and as things currently stand right now, there is no way you could justify paying him Joe Burrow kind of money, upwards of $250 million. And it's pretty straight. The bottom line is that this season of 2023 just reeks of regression. Many had high hopes for his 3rd season, as I did investing in him in my cards, but it's been disappointing, and the Jags could miss out on the playoffs altogether with a subpar offense led by an underwhelming quarterback. Could he still turn it around and become one of the league's best passers? Potentially, but he seems to have a lot to figure out mentally to be able to reach that level. Far too often, a throw sails over his wide receiver's head or misses the mark entirely. Last year, it would have felt crazy to suggest that perhaps Trevor Lawrence doesn't get beyond his rookie deal with the Jaguars. In 2023, though, that's a real conversation, and one which is growing louder the closer we get to the end of the season. Trevor has now had multiple games down the stretch where he's fallen short of the mark and let the team down with the playoffs on the line. He played poorly against the Cleveland Browns in week 14, throwing 3 touchdowns but 3 interceptions as well. And then in a must-have-it week 16 game against the frankly bad Tampa Bay defense, he threw another 2 interceptions and cost his team the win. But how do you guys feel about Trevor Lawrence? Does he deserve an extension, or should the Jacksonville Jaguars just let him go? Does he deserve more excuses, or is he just the modern-day Sam Bradford? Let us know down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys in the next one.